Hi there, I'm Cameron Carey from Profit Private Training. Today we're going to share with you the whole concept surrounding posture. Many thanks for tuning in. I hope you find this whole tutorial quite informative. But what we'd like to share with you is not only the aspects surrounding bad posture. What does bad posture mean? What are the symptoms and pains and or discomfort that is created by bad posture? Is it synonymous just with a bad look, as in a hunchback position? And what else does it involve? What else can it affect? So today we're going to share with you maybe some ideas and aspects surrounding this whole concept that maybe you haven't thought of. It just creates a different conversation in your head, which would be great. If you'd like to find out any further information, you're more than welcome to contact us directly. So when it comes to posture, what does it all mean? Well, posture is pretty much a two-sided phenomenon. The one aspect surrounding posture, as we can see via the screen, I'm sure many of us have found ourselves in this very position at any given point, especially with the use of mobile devices nowadays and laptops. Any device where there's a close proximity of workstation, we tend to round our back, we tend to round our shoulders, hang our head, and we find ourselves typically in this whole position. Okay, now, the one aspect surrounding posture that you need to know and you need to understand is the fact that bad posture is not synonymous with people that are inactive. Bad posture can affect sportsmen. It can affect active people. It can affect sedentary people. So the whole component to this scenario is quite extensive, because even though people are exercising well and really putting a lot of effort into their well-being and their nutrition, they don't improve their posture. They find that they're still having a lot of discomfort in various places of their spine, neck, shoulders, and it can run right downstream. So what is it all called? I mentioned it a bit earlier. It's called text neck, otherwise known as forward head lean. So that is ultimately what it looks like. And now, before we dive into other aspects, let's take a look at the spine and just chat about the different segments of the spine. Right, just before we get into the spine and discussing those segments of the spine, the forward head lean position affects your physical and mental well-being. We're going to get into those details shortly, but just having a look at the spinal column. The one thing that a lot of people don't understand about the spine is that there are obviously three segments. Now, you've got the lumbar spine at the bottom, which comprises your bigger vertebra. So you've got 5 bigger vertebrae of the lumbar spine. Then you've got 12 vertebral bodies of the thoracic spine, and you've got 7 smaller vertebrae at the top in the cervical spine, the neck area. So the one thing about the spine that is fascinating, everything works off the spine. The core works off the spine. Our power is driven off the spine. The spine needs to be stable in order for us to move well. But with that being said, the thoracic spine, that middle segment right here, now this segment of the spine is meant to be mobile, which basically means it needs to have some segmental mobility through that area, because out of the entire spinal column, this section of the spine contributes 30% of our spinal rotation and movement. Now, what happens is that when we're lacking mobility, right here, with that mid-back, is that the cervical spine and the lumbar spine end up having to take a lot of slack. Now, the cervical spine at the top and the lumbar portion at the bottom, the lower back area, where we often get a lot of lower back discomfort, these segments are meant to be stable. All right, so by design, they're meant to be stable. They're not meant to be mobile. However, like I touched on earlier, the thoracic spine, when this segment starts to lock up, okay, and it reduces mobility, the spine then has to try to take up the slack either at the top or the bottom, and those segments start basically becoming more mobile. They're not meant to do that. Now, when that occurs, we start creating a huge amount of wear and tear in those segments of the spine at the top and the bottom. So that wear and tear can result in all sorts of ailments, all sorts of disc degeneration, and many different concepts of spinal discomfort. Now, when it comes to the spine and when it comes to what is ideally the best shaped spine, well, let's touch on that. So when it comes to the actual spine itself, now, we have a look here. We've got what is known as an S curve, all right? And we've got what is known as a J curve. So this S curve is obviously the exacerbated bad posture, effectively, that is synonymous with a forward head lean, as you can see, and a spine that actually has quite a high degree of curvature in that mid-back area. All right, so what is ideal, what we do tend to work towards, is more towards the J spine. Okay, in other words, a spine that has some natural curvature. We need natural curvature in our spine, running right from that lower back, okay, into that, in that whole lumbar region. We want some curvature to the thoracic spine, and we definitely need that curvature at the cervical spine as well. So we call this lordosis and kyphosis in this area, and also again we need cervical lordosis at the top. But again, what happens with time spent in bad positions over a period of time, desk-bound people sitting at computers, spending hours and hours on devices and things like that, creating and compounding the situation, we end up with this typical S curve, which isn't ideal. And going forward, that's ideally, it causes a cascade of issues throughout the system, which we're soon going to be chatting about coming up. Right, so if it was so easy to fix forward head lean position, we would all be walking with perfect posture, sitting with perfect posture, and having a lot less discomfort throughout our years. Now, I've got a chart up here just to display obviously the different types of postures that we see. Okay, now I'm gonna chat a little bit more about each one, but specifically going into the forward head lean position, which is this guy right here. You can see his head is quite extended further forward in front of his shoulders. And he's got that typical forward head lean position. So what is it basically? It's obviously the head slumps forward, the shoulders hunch forward, the spine rounds dramatically. Now, what that does do was when the body assumes that position, it puts a massive amount of stress on load on all the tissues running where? Right through the shoulders, right through the neck, and right down the back as well. Now, the head, when the head is correctly, specifically through the neck, when your head is correctly aligned, as it is in the last graph right here, okay, so when your head is correctly aligned, the rest of the spine actually falls into place. It finds its own natural position. We do have 3 different shaped spines that we genetically given, so we work with what we're given, but you can't change the shape of your spine, all right, but what you can do is you can constructively improve the functionality, the support, the stability, and what we call proprioceptive ability through the spine, which is your spine's ability to be able to navigate and how to appropriately place itself in any given point in space and environmental challenges. So going back to that ultimate posture, the typical head weighs between 4.5 and 5 kilograms. Okay, so that is perfectly normal. Now, that weight of that head and the load on the neck changes quite exponentially as we obviously dive more into a forward head lean, which we're going to get into just now. But now you've got typically here, you've got a sway back, which is an individual that has almost a pelvis that's somewhat collapsed right forward. And he's going to have, in his system, there's going to be many different tissues that are going to prevent chronically tight and long and weak in many different areas as well. So here you've got an individual with excessive lumbar lordosis, which is a dramatic curvature of the lower back. Some people have a very high degree of natural curvature of their lower back. But then again, unfortunately, due to a lot of the activities we do or lack of, we end up exacerbating that curvature, creating a huge amount of spinal compression in the back. Never a great idea, a lot of back discomfort. Then you've got the thoracic kyphosis, which is really kind of like that tortoise shaped mid-back area. Okay, he definitely doesn't look like a ninja. So in saying that typical curvature is synonymous, again, yes, with the forward head lean, without a doubt, but there's many other aspects that play a role in actually creating that mid-back curvature. We've got, like we've discussed, our forward head lean position. So what does all these different shapes actually mean? Well, here's the trick now. The body is a complex system. There's no one size fits all approach here. So the type of protocol that we would use in order to address the sway back is completely different to how we would address the lumbar lordosis compared to the thoracic kyphosis of that mid-back and the forward head lean. So here, this graph is depicting the fact that this forward head lean is a separate issue to these first three. Now, it doesn't have to be the case. You can have a sway back position with a forward head lean. Okay, what does that mean? It means the protocols of those two different types of poor postural positions needs to be blended and effectively mastered in order to recorrect that posture. Okay, so what I'm alluding to is, and I'm hoping you can try and understand that, in order to fix this, there's a multitude of different solutions that need to be created to do it. You don't just fix your posture by doing the same things that everybody else does. You've got to have the spine assessed. You've got to be able to try and navigate where you fall and what characteristics your body presents in relation to this. So ideally, we work towards that ideal good posture. Does everybody have the most ideal perfect posture? No. But we want, the more we work closer towards that position, well, the less likelihood we have of the long-term wear and tear and the discomfort that we succumb to over a period of time. So we spoke of the tissue damage that bad posture can create. And what happens is that when we get this forward head lean position, and this is quite interesting, there's a joint here at the top called C7. Now at that C7, due to that curvature that's created pretty much at that joint, all right, the neck really tends to bend at that one point. Now, what the body does as a protective measure, it builds up bone and fatty tissue just on that segment of that vertebra in order to try and protect the body, to try and add a little bit of structural resiliency. The unfortunate thing, and that's it's often associated with a lump on that area of the neck. It's called a Dowinger's lump. Now, that lump is not only is it, people that have it, they hate the look of it and all that, but you know, at the end of the day, that lump was created due to long-term bad posture and a long-term position of forward head lean, along with all the other mechanical dysfunctions that are associated with that culminate in that. So the body it's basically a compensating strategy to try and protect its system. So, you know, when it comes to training and exercise, you know, you can't train hard and improve your posture. You can't eat well and improve your posture. So what does it basically mean? It means that it takes an intuitive approach to actually really change your posture with the correct professionals who actually know what they're doing. You can, over a period of time, shrink 2 inches shorter due to either be it curvature of that lumbar spine, thoracic kyphosis included with the forward head lean. And I think we can all agree that that's not the way we want, that's not the position we want to find ourselves in later age. And you can bet your bottom dollar you're going to have a huge amount of discomfort associated in different places because of it. We will be looking at a lot of other symptoms and causes created by bad posture. That's going to be the interesting part coming up. Right, so we're just going to take a quick look specifically at the loading of that neck. I touched on briefly earlier on the fact that the head is 4.5 kilograms, 4.5 to 5.5 kilograms. Now, with every inch forward that we position our neck in, that adds an additional 5 to 5.5 kilograms to your entire spine, not just your neck. So if I had to just show you here, we can see here, this is typically your 10 to 12 pound range, which is that 4.5 to 5.5 kilograms. So that is the weight of the head. Now the body is basically balancing, if you think about it, it's balancing a weight on top of your shoulders. So it's got to work. It's got to work. So now that 10 to 12 pounds gets exacerbated. We take it an inch forward, and now we're creating an extra 15 degrees of cervical curvature there. Now that's going to add on another 5 to 5.5 kilograms. Now we add on 30 degrees. Okay, so all we're basically doing is, it's not a massive curvature, as we know. 30 degrees is only just about in that position right there. Then we add on another 15 degrees to that. We take it to 45 degrees, and we can very easily find ourselves in a 60-degree position when we're on a phone, typically, specifically on a mobile device. Now that can incrementally add up to just under 30 kilograms of excess load on top of your neck, over and above where we started with just a weight of about 5.5 kilograms. So I'm sure you can appreciate the loading as to what we do, and more specifically the duration of time spent in these degrees has a massive role to play in all of these features. So it's definitely something to look at. Posture, you can't fix your posture just at your spine. You have to look globally at your entire system in order to find out the recipe and the solution necessary. Right, so let's discuss, now we've been through the spine, let's discuss the actual causes that are created from a forward head lean position over an extended period of time. There's many, and a lot of these type of situations we find ourselves in, discomforts and all these different things that we completely don't relate to posture are directly related to posture. So I will be honest, this is a phenomenon that's actually becoming a global pandemic, if I could describe it like that. It really should be second to obesity in the world, because this is pretty much, unfortunately, because of the way the world is moving. Everything is becoming very technologically advanced. We're spending more time on devices, and technology is a medium that we're obviously becoming more efficient in, but we're spending more time with it, resulting in many different aspects relating to less movement. So that is fundamentally one of the biggest things. So when you look at forward head lean position, it can create constant fatigue and a lack of energy. Without a doubt, your body is not performing it's not moving well. It's restricted. It's compounded by its position. Its spinal position is relatively compounded. You don't have ease of movement. It's a very tiring place to be in. It feels like you're actually trying to walk and you're attached to a parachute. The discomfort associated is with it travels. It can be in many different places, depending on the shape of your spine, depending on how you sit, depending on your lifestyle pattern, depending on how you sleep. There are tons of aspects that actually relate to what increases pain. Maybe you're exercising. You're doing some incremental loading when it comes to training, and unfortunately that loading is exacerbating a lot of the tight tissue that your bad posture already has. So now you're overloading your system in a position where it's actually just going to create even worse posture as one. But not only that, it can also start accelerating the wear and tear. When it comes to muscles, joints, and ligaments, they are all compromised by having bad posture, including the restriction of blood vessels and nerves. So we find ourselves in a position quite easily due to disc degeneration, where we get nerve entrapment, and we have nerve-related issues and radicular pain going down, either be at the arms, it can be from the back, traveling down the legs. That is really, really painful. I think anybody that's had that can put their hand up and actually really be honest and say, well, that is pain I never want to go through again. I really need to address this. But again, like I mentioned earlier, we've got to address it globally. It's not something you can just fix. Now, another thing is quite synonymous with bad posture and forward head lean is headaches and dizziness. So if you take into account headaches and migraines, dizziness, now if you think of all the tissue that is pretty much constricted behind the base of the skull, right into the cervical spine, and we get muscles called your occipital muscles, which is right into the cranial portion, right into the base of the spine, and those occipital muscles right up into the back lobe of our skull. All those areas get chronically tight. You just think of a shirt that's actually just creased and bunched up. Now, there's not much space, which means there's not much movement. They're chronically tight, and they're always permanently in an extended position because of the curvature of that upper back. We find ourselves in trying to keep our eyes on the horizon, and the only way we can keep them on the horizon is by achieving that neck tilt, which unfortunately creates a huge amount of tension into that whole area. Along with this is poor sleeping pattern. Sleep apnea. Not only does being overweight affect sleep apnea, but bad posture can aggressively accelerate the apnea condition, and just your general sleeping pattern, your ability to get quality sleep. Now, why would that be? Well, unfortunately, what bad posture does do, given that whole curvature of the spine at the top, is it really does restrict your airway. So you don't get great lung function. Now, our lung function can reduce by up to 30%. So now you're in bed, but you're in bed for 8 to 9 hours. You crash and you wake up and you're still tired. Now, not only is it necessarily just related to fitness, well, I need to get fit, I need to start running. Now you start running, you start pushing your system with all good intentions, but you can't improve your performance, you can't get fitter. There's a reason for that. So over and above that, obviously arthritis is one element. taking into account osteoarthritis and rheumatoid arthritis. Those are separate scenarios. They can attack the spinal column, but which would need other medical-based intervention as opposed to just some corrective work. But impaired athletic performance is a big one. People that are athletes that are trying to perform well at sports, or not only just enjoy your sport. You want to go out and you want to enjoy your golf, but now you're walking from hole to hole and you're exhausted. You can't wait to stop. You hit the ball and you want to talk some more. So, all of those type of things are all little red flags. That's your body telling you in many different ways that I'm not moving well. I'm not feeling great. I'm not getting good lung function. So that's one element. I touched on it earlier. Also, one of the other causes that can be caused by it is a reduced spinal height. Now, that's a big one because, again, what does that do? The reduced spinal height places a massive amount of spinal compression on all the vertebral bodies, right from that C-spine like we discussed, and I showed you at the beginning of the video, all the way down to the lumbar spine. And those vertebral bodies start sitting and they start deviating off a stable position, creating either be it pinched nerves and again, just disc and spinal degeneration. But what happens is that when we get this bad posture, we start having an early onset of degeneration. Now that type of thing is something that we can really avert. We don't need to find ourselves at the age of 40, 45, possibly even a bit earlier, where we're having early onset spinal degeneration due to decades previous to that of bad postural positionings. So that is one element. The other aspect, like I touched on, is your pinched and entrapped nerves. A lot of the nerve endings can get really, really run down with regards to the space that they run through and through that whole neural foramina, which is actually really the channel where the nerves run through. Now, that whole area can be dramatically constricted, resulting in what, like I mentioned earlier, you get radicular pain down your extremities. And again, it can result in some serious discomfort like sciatica running down the leg. We sometimes get that peroneal nerve on the side of the leg that causes a massive amount of discomfort as well, which means what? We've got a loss of good function. We've got a loss of good muscular contraction. The body lacks its ability to be able to decelerate. Okay, that's a big one. So walking involves deceleration. It involves acceleration. It involves movement. So also associated with this is obviously a decrease in range of movement. So given all the curvature occurring throughout our system, our range of movement is limited. Now, as three-dimensional human beings, we're supposed to move in three different dimensions in order to be able to live well, move well, function well, play well, sleep well. Now, all of those three dimensions, okay, and there are three of them. They're basically the sagittal, transverse, and frontal planes of the body. They involve rotation, lateral movement, and forward bend, and your forward structures, and backward movement. So all of that can be dramatically impaired simply due to how locked up your spine is through bad posture. So it's something that, again, can be really, really dramatically reduced based on the right protocols, the right exercise program with the right people guiding you. The other thing, obviously, like anything else, I touched on it earlier, is also the emotional effects of bad posture. Is that it reduces your confidence. You don't feel confident, either be it on the sporting field, you don't feel great about yourself, lacking confidence in the workplace. I think out of, just simply from an anatomical perspective, we understand the wear and tear, we understand all that, but if you take into account the emotional aspects that can be associated with this, I find it also even more sad, because really an individual's confidence and their own self-image is based on how they feel about themselves, but now they have that terrible hunched over look and they don't feel good about themselves. So this type of position can also reduce the amount of brain flow or blood flow to the brain rather, which can be quite evident on certain occasions, and obviously to varied degrees. Asthma is another issue that can be affected by not only the bad posture but the reduced lung function. So your body's inability to be able to aspirate effectively is going to be is directly influenced by the fact that you with your curvature of that mid back, we don't get good diaphragmatic function. We're not breathing through our diaphragm. We can't, simply because of that poor spinal position. Now, to improve that, well, that involves a very scientific and a very pragmatic approach to not only activate the diaphragm, but you've got to change your posture. There's no point trying to work on the diaphragm unless you're actually addressing the whole system. So asthma is one, and that's obviously, like I said, that is going to impair what performance, just normal daily function. The decreased lung capacity is very evident and can be evident all day, making your day exceptionally tiring. By the end of the day, you've finished. You're ready to crash. But then you sleep, and then you don't have a great night's sleep. You wake up, you're still tired, and as you can see, it just becomes a vicious circle that we tend to find ourselves living in. Vertigo, balance issues, well, that is also another big one that can be directly associated with bad posture, simply because we lack our body's natural proprioceptive abilities, and that's our body's ability to navigate our system at any given point in space, either be it from a voluntary or from an involuntary point of view. The other thing that's also very interesting is it also can burden your digestive system. So again, if you just had to think about it quite logically, if you had to get that whole rib cage, you rotate it right over, so you anteriorly drive that rib cage over. We've got a lot of compressional load into this whole lumbothoracic, the lumbopelvic area. What is that going to do? It's definitely going to affect our digestive processes and our body's ability to be efficient in those areas. So as you can see, folks, there are many aspects that can be associated from just your common forward head lean and text neck position. So by now we can actually determine just the type of aspects that can be created by having a bad posture and that typical forward head lean position that we've discussed. Now, the one thing about the neck that we've got to understand, if we look at it a little bit more from a holistic perspective, is that the neck really is the balance beam from where posture flows. So that is really the beam from which everything runs off. Okay, yes, the entire spine is important, and there are many very important neck muscles that actually involve many different functions in our neck, and obviously promote very different movements, and they control movements on side bending, forward flexion, extension, and they work with others from a synergistic perspective in order to enable the individual to be able to manage and cradle the head in the right position. Now, there's one muscle that I'm going to introduce you to, which is known as the SCM. All right, it's this guy right here. Now, that SCM stands for sternocleidomastoid. Now, with a lot of individuals that have a sternocleidomastoid that is relatively overactive, or it's weak, and it's not supple. You need a muscle. In order for a muscle to function effectively, it's got to be strong, but it's got to be pliable at the same time. So if it's strong tight, it means it's tight, it stays there, which means it's not doing its job in both paradigms as to what it's actually designed to do. So this muscle, is predominantly becomes the main muscle of lifting the head the whole time. This muscle basically originates right by the sternal plate, and the clavicle, the collarbone, and then it runs up the neck into what is known as the mastoid process, just behind the ear, onto the temporal bone there. So this guy becomes a very prominent feature. In some people, you may notice they get that very, very dominant SCM, and maybe on one side more than the other. Now, any trained individual that has the key, has those skills to be able to identify, would know how to deal with it. The physiotherapists are phenomenal with this type of aspect. Chiropractors understand this whole mode of what's going on with regards to the neck. And the thing is that when this muscle really lacks that ability to be able to manage our posture, our neck posture, we again don't have the rest of the spine falling in place. So in order for head alignment to be effective, we need to, this is one of the key components to making sure that we can actually find a position where that muscle is supple, and it allows, this muscle allows the head to sit perfectly on the neck. In order to achieve that, well, there's a multitude of things that's actually got to come into place to make sure that that guy is working, it's not weak, and it isn't overly tight. So there's many ways of addressing this, but I wanted to introduce you to this guy because he is a major role player in actually managing your head alignment and your upper spinal posture. Right, I think we can all pretty much agree that good alignment of the neck reduces stress tension off the entire back. It allows the torso to elongate and allows it to extend. Now, what does that do? And again, it improves your lung function, your breathing function, and then obviously it increases your oxygen capacity to your brain. So it is key for postural health that we look at this region, which is unfortunately nowadays incredibly undervalued. Now, if we discuss the aspects of, well, how do I feel when I do improve my posture? There are many things that we've touched on as well. You increase peak performance with regards to movement. Okay, so your peak performance could be either be it on the sporting field, it could actually just enjoying your 5K walk, but enjoying it that much better, knowing that you're recruiting the right structures through that movement because you've addressed globally your entire system through, again, the right individual to do that. So the lung function improvement is great. The increase in height is another big one, which we've touched on already, which reduces a lot of compensating tension throughout the entire spine, reducing that whole imploding feeling. You're able to train harder. You're able to gain strength. And a lot of individuals will complain about the fact that they can't get to a certain goal, whether it be it they are lifting weights or they're wanting to run and improve their performance. They're monitoring their rate of recovery. The VO2 max is not improving. Now, this is all directly related to the holistic concept of posture. And I'm sure we can appreciate how that can ultimately affect that. And that's how we live. That's how we move. So you will be more focused. You'll have more focus, you're able to think clearer, and you're also to protect your spine from wear and tear. And I think that's pretty much one of the biggest boxes ticked, is the ability to actually manage and look after our spinal integrity right into later age, which we all want to get to. But not only do we want to get to later age, we want to get to later age, move well, live well, and love life. That's what it's about. So we have to be a little bit more mindful as to how we approach what we do. So again, sleeping better and increasing of confidence, that all goes hand in hand with improving head posture. So if we look at the symptoms, you typically all the symptoms, the pain, the discomfort, treating your symptoms, taking an anti-inflammatory for back discomfort, is not going to solve the problem. It will give you some short-term relief. The other element that won't solve your problem is going to be stretching. Now, stretching when it comes to certain areas of our body, whether be it from an anterior or posterior or even neck-related stretches, some of those stretches are great. What do? They give you short-term relief. But what you've got to understand is that your spine, your body has a default setting. So as soon as you've relieved those structures, it will tend to, upon fatigue over time, find that same default position again as to where you are. We all have some form of default mode that we fall into. That's the area that ultimately we want to change. We want to get our body to start adapting and identifying a different positioning. We need to start improving our motor function on all areas of our body. That's why I said we've got to address this whole concept from a global perspective. It's not going to happen just by looking at one aspect and saying, I'm going to strengthen my core. Strengthening your core is not going to improve your posture. Strengthening your glutes is not going to single-handedly strengthen your posture. Running further is not going to strengthen your posture. Resting more, sleeping more, and taking anti-inflammatories, that's not going to do it either. So stretching, like I mentioned, is a short-term solution, but it can be part of an entire protocol that's comprehensively put together. Now, the whole aspect surrounding how do I approach this whole thing? There's many criteria that need to be addressed in order to start to improve the forward head lean position that we've been discussing. Now, what is that? That is we need to re-educate certain muscles as to how to function again. Now, that doesn't mean that it's just your run-of-the-mill gym work or even necessarily just yoga. Yoga is great for mobility and flexibility, but we still need to re-educate a lot of structures on how to start functioning effectively again. There's very, very specific ways of doing that, obviously, mobility-based exercises are wonderful. Mobility-based routines is great, but that single-handedly is not going to do it. So it involves a criteria of all of these guys. Deep neck flexor strengthening is essential. It's absolutely essential when it comes to managing and cradling that neck, like we spoke of that sternocleidomastoid, that SCM muscle earlier. That is key, but you've also got to be very mindful of the fact there's certain neck flexors that can actually overcompensate for others. We've got to be aware of that as well. So as you can see, there's a hell of a lot more to the system than just simply one exercise fits all. Myofascial release techniques are great, without a doubt. But again, the correct myofascial release techniques done for the correct duration of time, using the correct modality, in other words, the correct accessory, whatever it is that you're using, it needs to be appropriate for you. There's many different mobility-based drills that may not be appropriate for your system whatsoever, and it's not going to aid and better what you're trying to do, which is really starting to improve your mobility and range of movement through structures. So your static strengthening over time, that goes without saying. We need to strengthen your system. There's no point mobilizing your system and allowing for freedom of spinal movement and joint movement unless we stabilize that system holistically, because that's going to affect your posture. So postural strengthening, now that's massive. Obviously, it goes without saying. We've got to improve postural strengthening in order to make sure that all those factors I mentioned earlier all come together like pieces of the puzzle to formulate a picture. And there's one piece left. That's corrective breathing. How do we breathe? Are we, again, I touched on it earlier, diaphragmatic function and breathing through the diaphragm. Do we use a lot of that over time, or are we operating from our upper thorax area? Are we breathing through our chest? Do we know how to go into that form of breathing? Can you improve your diaphragmatic function and your breathing pattern without improving your posture? Yes. Will it be limited over time if you don't improve your posture? Yes. So again, we've got to look at the whole concept, but without a doubt, improving that is going to make you feel better on the long run. So, folks, I hope this has been informative, and I trust that this type of video that we wanted to share with you, again, just adds a little bit of light into what bad posture actually involves, what it can involve, the complexity of the entire system with regards to, number one, different spinal shapes, the characteristics of those different spinal shapes, and am I a blend of either one of those? What is my neck doing in relation to my back, my posture? What activities do I do? How much loading do I do? How much sedentary positionings do I do in relation to all of that? All those factors come together that need to be addressed in order to fix your posture. So you fix your posture, what have you got? You got better movement. You feel better. You can perform better. You're able to start challenging yourself in ways that you thought you couldn't do before, on many different aspects. In other words, living life better, enjoying life better, making the most out of your own system. Your system is dynamic. It's dynamic. But unfortunately, in as dynamic as our system is, our body has got the most unbelievable way of developing compensating strategies across the board, not necessarily just pertaining to forward head lean and text neck. It's got compensating strategies across the board that it will employ in order to make sure that you can basically perform the task at hand. And therein lies one of the biggest issues. That's where the wear and tear is created. And that's where we find ourselves in a position where we sit back and go, my gosh, what am I doing? I've done this, I've done that. And I find myself in a situation where I don't feel like I've got the solution. I'm not feeling good. I'm not moving well. Moving well is all about life. I hope you enjoyed this time together. Thank you very much. I'm Cameron Carey. I'm the correctional exercise specialist at Profit. And as a team at Profit, we fundamentally believe only in doing things the right way. And that is very much a holistic and global perspective and an approach to movement that that allows for value, but that involves a hell of a lot of work, and it's definitely not going to be one little short video that's going to fix your system and fix your posture. Thank you for your time, and we'll see you again soon.